What's going on, everybody? We have the meta snapshot for patch 13.1c. This is the week 2 update. We're going to be going over the summary first, and then we'll get into how to play each and every one of those comps. But there were a couple of changes from last week just because the meta kind of developed a bit. So the one surprise is Yuumi got bumped up a little more. It's actually like a really strong comp again. But in the S tier, we have Samira, Lasercorps, Kaisa, Oxforce Viego, Threats, and then Yuumi. A tier, we have Soraka, Zoe, Leblanc, Mech, Misfortune, Draven, Talon, Jax, Star Guardian, Taliyah, Duelist, Misfortune Mech, Camille Reroll, Sureshot Reroll, and then Gangplank Supers. And then in the B tier, we have Brawler, Ashe, Lulu, Kayle, Nasus Reroll, Duelist Reroll, Wukong, and Anima, Jinx. In case you guys haven't seen it yet, if you actually want to learn how to climb, I suggest checking out these videos up here above the meta snapshot at bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And it's kind of like in order of experience. So start at the top and then go all the way down depending on your level. But going on into the team compositions, we have the Samira comp up here. Right now, the civilian one is pretty good. There are a bunch of different versions of this comp, of course. People were playing this with Mech before, but I think the civilian version is a little bit better because it gets Samira to cast a lot. And Zac is a pretty decent tank, and you don't have to rely on getting all those mech units. Also, one thing to note is that Aphelios is a real carry now, so if you ever get him to 2-star and 3 items, you don't need to have him on stun gun duties anymore. You actually want him to deal some damage now, which is really good. Left gun is probably the one that people use the most, but you could still use the right one if you need the single target. If you do end up using the left gun, something like the Hextech Gunblade is really good on Aphelios because he kind of heals your entire team with that burst of damage, so that's really good as well. But this is the base of the comp. We have the requirements down here, Last Whisper is pretty much the only thing you absolutely need. And after that, flex the front line. You prefer this one you see in the picture, but as with most things in TFT, a lot of different things are kind of playable if you put them in and out depending on what you hit that game. We have the how to play section over here if you want a bit more details. Again, that's on the website. But moving on into the next build, we have Lasercorps Z. Lasercorps kind of became one of the main go-to comps for a lot of players right now because it's really consistent. It's not as high roll as the Samira comp, because in Lasercorps Z, you have the option of playing Ashe over Mordekaiser if you don't hit him, and then you also have the cap out of 9 Lasercorps if you need it. But this composition is also really good because you can build a lot of the strong early game items, such as Static Shiv, Ionic Spark, because it helps out with Lasercorps, and you could also flex into other comps when you build that item. You're not forced into a Z build whenever you do that. So there are a lot of hidden strengths of the Lasercorps Z comp that just aren't really that tangible because you can't say oh, because I could build an Ionic Spark and flex into other builds potentially and move out of the Lasercorps comp, therefore it's good. It's a little weird seeing that, and that's kind of why we make these tier lists, because stuff like that doesn't show up in the data, and it isn't that immediate to other players as well. But that's why the comp's really good. You could just build frontline or generic items, and then your Z items, they matter, but not that much. And then the 6 Lasercorps really stabilizes you at level 7. And then if you want to win out, or if you have the opportunity to win out, I should say, once you hit 9 Lasercorps, you just pretty much auto win the game or auto top 2 unless someone has some crazy stupid team. But yeah, we have the instructions again down here. Item recommendations, so you just want Edge and Knight on Z, and then after that Runons is my favorite, and then some people like Last Whisper, some people just going more damage. It depends if you want to kill the tanks or the backlines. That's what it's going to come down to. But really Z can use almost any item. Sejuani, just Sunfire Redemption, any tank item. I actually really like the Protector's Vow because it gets her to cast a little earlier, but everyone has their own preferences. And then Mordekaiser, just literally any leftover items do well on him. I've even seen full tank Mordekaisers do well. It's not the best. Obviously, you want a hat on him or something like that, but you got to make do because you can't build around legendaries. Kaisa Recon's the next build. Again, 2 different versions of this comp. We have the one with Star Guardians that you see here. Because we only have 7 units in this image, you can add in an 8th, such as Echo preferably, but if you can't get him, you could use Rel if you want to give Star Guardian to Kaisa. Not the most important buff, but Duelist is also pretty nice to buff up your Vayne from the Nyla. And also because these are all 3 cost units, you could just play a lot of them and roll for them at level 7 or level 8. One thing to note is that it's important to either have 4 Recon or Jeweled Gauntlet on your Kaisa if you don't have 4 Recon. And you could do really well with that build because it just really amplifies your damage. I'm going to be coming out with a game on this build with Double Trouble because I've been playing a lot of Kaisa. We have the 2-hour guide that we saw before, but I'm going to go into a little more cool situations with the Double Trouble Kaisa build sometime this weekend. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite builds just because I really like the Kaisa concept because she's just really cool. She's like the on-hit type of build in this set. Onto the next build, we have Oxforce Viego. Viego's super consistent as well. You really just need Ionic Spark plus Hextech Gunblade on him, and then just any third damage item will do. And the reason why this build is so good is because it makes really good use of the Spatula. Spatula could build either Oxforce or Renegade Crest, and because of that, like, you just have so much more power because of it. You don't even need to get 6 Renegade. You could just stay at 3 and then drop all the bad units such as like Silas, Camille. And then you could also just run whatever random carry you happen to hit on your roll down. I prefer Misfortune with the Oxforce or Renegade Spatula, but if you get like an Aurelion Soul, if you get a Belveth or something like that, literally anyone can fill that spot, which is why I think this composition is pretty strong. Obviously, you do still need Viego 2-star to kind of win a lot of games, and that can be hard to get sometimes, especially if the comp is contested, but that kind of goes in hand with every single comp we have in TFT. But yeah, Fast 8 is generally pretty good. 7 is okay to roll on, but you really need like that 2-star Viego, so you don't want to roll too much on 7. Obviously, some games you have to do it, but you could also make great use of any of the legendaries like Fiddlesticks, Urgot. Oh, I didn't even realize we have the list of the emblem users down here, but like all really, really solid. Yeah, you could even use Soraka because you run Camille as a Renegade early on, so you could get a good admin potentially. And yeah, you have the high cap out of 6 Renegades, similar to how Lasercorps has the 9 Lasercorps cap out. This one has a 6 Renegade cap out. Onto the next build, we have Threats. So Threats is really good because Belveth is actually a real unit now. The only important thing about Belveth is that you just need some form of healing on her, either from Celestial Blessing, Thrill of the Hunt, Hextech Gunblade, Bloodthirster. Just any form of healing is needed on Belveth. After that, you could do whatever you want. Pretty much any attack damage or attack speed item will do. I prefer the attack damage or damage amplification stuff, such as like a Guard Breaker, Giant Slayer, but like Titans is really good because she stacks up really quickly. Last Whisper, she's AD, so if you don't have Last Whisper on someone else, you kind of need it on her. But overall, just like a very solid unit in the meta right now because she got buffed so many times. And then you secondary carry your Ace Soul, Fiddlesticks, or Urgot after that. You could also play Belveth in a non-threat comp. You could just splash her in as like a random carry. Let's say you're playing for the Samira build, and then you're just like, hey, I hit a free Belveth too. Let me play her with the other front line. Like, that's perfectly fine too. Nothing illegal about that. But onto the next build, we have Yuumi Reroll. So Yuumi Reroll, this is the one with the Star Guardian version, so you're running it with Rel, Nyla, and the supers. Positioning is going to vary a lot depending on who you're facing. Some people put her in the center, like everyone grouped up in the top 6 squares, but there are a lot of different ways to do it. The reason why this comp is better than the Mascot version is not just because Mascots got nerfed, but it's also because when you roll at level 6, you could hit a lot more stuff. There are 4 2-cost units in this build, and in the Mascot one, they focus more on the 1-cost units, so it's a little awkward when rolling your gold, but this one's much more efficient. So that's why people really like this version of the build more. And yeah, we explain more in detail why here, but essentially you stabilize a lot harder in stage 3 at level 6 because all the units are 2-cost. After that, getting them to 3-star is really easy too. And like, you really just need to hit the 3 stars. The items don't even matter that much. Like, of course, if you have like these items down here on your Yuumi, you're going to do that much better. But I've seen people do well with like 3 garbage items on Yuumi because they got unlucky on like the item drops. And they still got like 2nd place from like having complete garbage items. And I was very impressed by that. You really just need to hit the 3 stars of the units in order to win with this comp. Onto the next build, we have Soraka Carry in the A tier. So A tier, it drops down a little bit. I still think they're all playable, and it really just depends on like what you're kind of good at on a certain patch. But Soraka Carry, nothing much has really changed. It's just the Echo, Annie, Alistair frontline plus whatever garbage you have in the back. You put Soraka in, you just need like 2 hearts with her. You don't even need that much. You prefer a good admin, but like you could just play her with kind of anything if you hit her for free. And it's kind of just like the flex AP builds as we're about to go into here. Zoe reroll is another option. This is one if you get like a lot of Zoes. They use pretty much the same items. It's just a blue buff, then some AP. And then with her, you obviously want to slow roll at level 7. You could also put a heart emblem on Zoe. Lots of different things you could do there. Next build up, we have Leblanc reroll. So Leblanc is with threats mainly as the front line, but you could also use the Alistair, Echo, Annie front line with Leblanc too. There are a lot of different options there, but like pretty much all these AP comps, they all share the same items in like blue buff plus AP. Leblanc could use Shojin, but it doesn't really matter that much on her. That we have other, we'll go back to the Misfortune builds, but like After that, we have like the Taliyah builds. Where are they? They're all the way down here. Like the Star Guardian, it's like the same front line, same items in the back. Like obviously this one, because you have 7 Star Guardian, you don't need the mana regen, but like in the regular Taliyah build, mana is a little more important, so you could do like either blue buff or like 3 damage as well, but it's like Echo, Annie, Alistair, plus whatever garbage you throw in the back line. They all kind of flex into the same comp, and we made a video on that, so you guys can check that out on just playing like only AP. Let's get back to the Misfortune. So Misfortune in the 4 Ace Mech, very, 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 very strong, but obviously you need to get the Mordekaiser, and this build did get nerfed a bit because the mech got nerfed, but it's still really strong. It's just like turbo high roll because you need like Mordekaiser and like a 2-star set. So a little awkward in that sense. That's why we dropped it down to A tier, but still very good if you get everything. This is, of course, very similar to the MF Mech build, except the MF Mech build doesn't have the 4 aces. This one is a little easier to hit. Sorry, let me just go ahead and find it here. I think it's, yeah, finally down here. You just run the same mech, you run the same Misfortune, but instead of running the other aces, you just run random crap such as like Sejuani, Bel'Veth, like you could do Ace Soul depending on what items you hit, and then like other legendaries such as Fiddlesticks and Urgot. But again, let's head back up to the top. By the way, there's like an easy way to like navigate better than what I did. You can press this button down here to get to the top and then just like click on whichever comp you want to go to. But the MF Anima squad. Okay, so this one, I should have done a video on it before, but I'll do it in the next patch. I just kind of ran out of time to make it. But essentially, you just play Anima early, and then it snowballs you into like getting lots of good tanks. If you get the Anima Spatula, you could play 7 Anima in the mid game, and then late game you drop down to 5. You get rid of Nasus, you get rid of Silas, and then you play like Urgot Fiddlesticks or like whoever you hit. It could even be like a random Syndra or something like that. Like, be my guest, you know. But there are so many different carries that you could play in this comp if you ever get Anima Squad Spatula, and it's just overall like a super solid build. MF, of course, is going to be the main star. You could use Vayne to stabilize you if you're playing for like a top 4 or something like that. Vayne with like a Rage Blade does pretty well. But MF, just Shojin plus 2 damage items, and you're pretty much set after that. Like, you prefer having like a Riven 3 or something like that as a tank, but if you get like other beefy tanks such as like Echo, sometimes you play Zoe for like 3 Prankster or something like that. Or you get like cap out with some legendaries such as like 2-star Fiddlesticks, 2-star Urgot. You could do 2-star Zac as a tank as well. Like, you don't need the Riven 3, but it definitely does help a lot. But essentially, MF is just pretty flexible because you can play so many other units with her, and then you just like only need the Spear of Shojin and then just anything else after that to make the comp work. Like, I really like this comp, and obviously like it is like the bunny comp, so like I have been playing this a little more than I should. Onto the next build, we have Draven Reroll. This is like, there's some people who are like Draven Reroll specialists. I am not one of them, but like if you ever get the hero augment for Draven, like I played the Draven Reroll comp before, I just only play it from like very good spots, but some people like force this and they do really well, which I think is wild. But yeah, Draven 3, he just like runs through a lot of people. He power spikes at a very specific time, and then he like mows down everyone else. And then with that advantage, you could either just like slowly bleed out later on in the late game or just hit some crazy stuff later on. But pretty much he's mainly used for like top 4ing because getting that like super high cap out's a little hard. But you do run the risk of like not hitting him because you need one specific 3-star 2 cost, and it's just really difficult sometimes. Like with the Yuumi build, I've seen Yuumi do well as 2-star Yuumi, but with the Draven build, you pretty much need 3-star Draven. Onto the next build, we have Talon Reroll. This is like one of the more annoying comps this set because Talon just makes positioning so difficult. But that's why you kind of play him, because it makes other people like kind of grief, and they have to decide whether they want to position against you or their other 2 matchups every single round. So it's really, really annoying for other people to deal with. So if you like annoying people, definitely play this comp. But it's just 1-cost reroll. You just econ up and then roll for Talon either on 3-1 or slow roll on level 5 at 3-2 and beyond. And you could pick up other stuff as well. You could do like Silas 3-star. You could even do some of the 2-cost 3-stars. I've seen people do like Talon and Camille 3-star, kind of combining the Camille reroll with the Talon reroll, and that goes to great effects as well. But it depends what the admin is, of course, and if you hit them. Next build up, we have Jax. So Jax is still pretty solid. Like, he's kind of like a sleeper pick right now, I'd say. Like, I've seen him do really, really well, But of course, people only play him when they get like perfect starts for him. So if they get a lot of bows and they get an early Jax with like a Brawler start, that's like pretty much the only time you go for this. But if you do get those, he's like super, super good. Well, not super, super good, but like you'll probably get like top 4 with him, and you don't like need the 3-star Jax. It obviously helps though. But like I'm pretty sure I've done the same whether I get 3-star or 2-star Jax. So either I get 2-star Jax and I top 4, or I get 3-star Jax and I top 4. So it's like, yeah, it's a little funny in that aspect, but maybe your experiences differ. But yeah, you play him the same exact way we played him before, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Vertical Star Guardian. So this one's the Taliyah build. We kind of already went over these with the AP comp, so we'll kind of skip over that. You just play like Gadgettine early game, Spellslinger early game with like other item holders such as Sona or Leblanc, and then transition into Taliyah once you hit her 2-star. I guess the one important thing I want to tell you guys about Taliyah comps is that do not itemize Taliyah 1-star. Only itemize her once you get her to 2-star. But next build up we have is the Duelist. So Duelist, mixed reviews right now. It's a little different. Some people don't even do the locket stuff anymore. But like because of the nerf, it's just like kind of left behind of his former glory, you know? It's still very solid, but you kind of need to high roll it a little bit more. And also people are taking your Zeds because they're playing Lasercorps. So you kind of use Duelist to get into Lasercorps, not so much like Duelist to play Duelist, but sometimes you like have to play Duelist, and like they're still okay, just not as good as they were before. We already did Misfortune Mech. Let's move on into the Camille reroll. So Camille reroll, you just need a good admin or like the Camille carry augment, and then you just play her 3-star, get a Bloodthirster plus 2 other items on her, and you'll do just fine. You just have to pay attention to positioning, because moving the Hecarim around is like a little tricky. You obviously always want to hit their backline carries, and sometimes that's just like not possible. So if you don't like positioning, don't play this comp, but if you do, definitely try for this. Next build up, we have Sureshot reroll. This is either Sivir 3-star or Senna 3-star. You typically want to do them with their augments, but you also need the right items for it. But the one part about this, as I mentioned in the other videos, is that you could run Sivir carry with the build you see here. But if you do Senna carry, you could pretty much play her the same as you do in Samira comps, except you just have a Senna 3 instead of a Samira 2. Gangplank supers. This comp got buffed a tiny bit, but like if you ever have other people taking your supers, it's really hard to hit, so it's a bit tricky to kind of navigate this comp. Overall, pretty solid if you hit it, but it's just kind of hard to do, and like sometimes not worth it, I would say. This is definitely like one of the lower comps in the A tier right now. Onto the B tier, we have Ashe reroll. This is just like all the reroll comps. We'll kind of just skip over these, because if you get the augment for them and a good start for them, so let's say you're playing the game and then on 2-1, you get the hero augment, carry augment for whatever units this is, and it gets you a 2-star of that unit. Those are kind of the only situations I would play these comps, because if not, it's just like so awkward to do. I guess the exception is the Yasuo and the Jinx reroll comps, because those are 2-cost units. But for those, like, you need the carry augment for Yasuo reroll. So like, unless you get it, maybe you're playing Duelist early game, and then on 3-2, you happen to get the Yasuo carry augment, like, sure, go for it. For Jinx, kind of same thing, but like except with Anima squad. But those are kind of the only times I would play those builds. Onto the items, let's zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it might be tank items. It really depends. Like, I'm kind of good with any item start now. I don't really hate any item nowadays. Like, it really depends what comp you're playing. Like, I would not start Cloak unless you like playing Mech. So if you like playing Mech, start with a Cloak, and then you could also flex into Viego with the Ionic Spark. Rod is really popular as well, even though it's at the bottom right now. Like, some people love playing it with like Viego, AP, other stuff as well, like Misfortune. Belt's just always going to be solid because you build all the good defensive early game items from it. Bow, like, you need it for Duelist, you need it for Jax, you need it for Samira, for Last Whisper. So like with starting items, it's like very, very like flexible right now, I'd say. Like, whatever comps you like, just write down all the items for them that you like, required items. For example, when I look at the Samira build, you definitely want like attack damage and attack speed items. But since the mandatory item, as we write down over here, is Last Whisper, you want to go for like a Last Whisper component. So count those items in the build. So write down like 5 builds that you play or 3 builds that you play, whatever it is, and then write down the critical items. And then after that, like, you could kind of like figure out what item start you want. Like for Kaisa, it's the Static Shiv. So if you like Kaisa plus Zed or something plus Samira, like, you probably want to start a Bow, because Bow builds Static Shiv. Bow doesn't really build anything mandatory for Zed. It's just like decently good on him. Like obviously it builds Last Whisper and Runons, but it's not required. But like the required items in those 3 comps is like Last Whisper for Samira and Static Shiv for Kaisa. So it's like both of them need a bow. So therefore you would start bow. If you want to play like Kaisa and Soraka, then you want to start tier because Static Shiv is from a tier and blue buff's also from a tier for Soraka. So you kind of want to start with a tier for that. So that's kind of how you should approach your starting items. But that's going to be it from me today. Again, summary is going to be up here and we'll be updating this in the next patch as well. It's going to be dropping on Wednesday. But I'll come out with a patch preview on Tuesday, so definitely look out for that. But that's going to be it from me today. Hope to see you all later.